What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for Your Overwatch, bringing you your weekly hero rotation power tier lists. This week, Blizzard banned 2 tank heroes and 4 stun or crowd control heroes in Hog, Sigma, Doomfist, and Brig, who all have some way to stun you or CC you. Today's breakdown, I think, goes a bit easier than the complicated one of having to figure out how to play without main heals last week, because really the only S tier hero that got banned here was Brigitte. And kicking it off, we will discuss the tank lineups, and as always, these tier lists are for average level ranked players. I think at the higher tiers, Orisa Reinhardt is a pretty strong combo and means Bunker and Double Barrier is still alive, but I think that requires quite a mastery of that comp to get it to work, and it isn't very user friendly to the average Overwatch player. I even saw this in the previous week where the top level players were playing Orisa Sigma, but due to how much barrier management and engagement control and abilities you have to land to make those characters in a duo work, I think those tanks didn't feel as meta as they might be for the average player as much as they were for the top level players in last week's rotation. But this week's rotation, although you can play Bunker, I think the coordination and positioning it requires to execute will be more difficult than running either Brawl or Dive. Ryan's secretly the OP tank, so he's going to maintain at the number 1 spot whenever he's in. D.Va has very strong interactions with all manner of comps and is going to be your best answer up against Reaper and Tracer, who I think are a lot stronger with the stuns getting removed. And you're going to have to figure this out in your own games, but I would say in short, if you feel the enemy's DPS aren't good enough or are picking diveable DPS, you can play Dive. Or if the DPS aren't getting enough value, you can play Zarya and carry like you did with rush down healers like Lucio Ana or Lucio Moira. That'll all be fine. But if the enemy DPS is doing work or is a threat, D.Va will kind of be a must pick in order to stop them and silence them from overwhelming you with damage. The only tank I can't really justify you picking is Orisa, because I think she and the Bunker playstyle was easiest with a strong Brig player, which is now banned this week, and you're also losing all of the best combos with Halt. Doomfist, Roadhog, and Sigma are all out of the pool. So I don't know, if the enemy's diving, it can be tough to find Halts, and if they're brawling, maybe you get a Halt, but I think more likely against both matchups, you probably get run over, unless you play extremely disciplined around good Batiste lamps, but I think that's hard in ranked for most players. So because of that, let's move on to the supports, where the top picks of the week are going to be Lucio and Ana. The two of them see pretty good success with either Brawl or Dive, and you'll want to be picking Moira if you feel you can't stay alive on either of them. Remember, with a lot of stuns getting removed from the game, Lucio Boop and Ana Sleep Dart and Nade is one of the best ways left in the pool for you to be able to stop things from running at you or diving you and your team, but they're much harder to play than Brig was, which means I think supports are going to feel, although you have more healing power this week than you did last week, you might even be in more duress than in the previous week's pools. So in keeping theme, I am putting Bap and Zen in the avoid slot. Again, high tier players might get the Bunker playstyle to work, but there's a lot of disciplined teamwork in how everybody needs to position for it not to fall over easily, so I don't suggest you play them. Mercy, as we've spoken about for the past few weeks, is always on the fringe of jumping into being kind of strong, but not strong enough. She's pretty strong in dive mirrors, since she can have the movement to dodge mobility, unlike some of the other supports, but even then, Moira does that too, and of course, it's most important that with a Mercy pick, that you have a DPS hero that really can get use out of it. Otherwise, the other supports can get more value still. Now on to the DPS picks, where things get a little interesting this week, I think. Reaper, for me, is going all the way up to number 1. Why is that? Well, multiple ways of punishing him are gone. Granted, this version of Reaper today doesn't have the lifesteal he used to, but that's neither here nor there to me. His cooldowns is what makes him pretty insane, and he can play with Dive, with Shadow Step being so incredible, just teleporting onto the enemy with your tank as they dive. You can stay with your Rhine on Brawl or counter both those playstyles when they come onto you. Keep in mind, no Brigitte armor to make your damage weaker. No Sigma, who was your best counter in the tank slot, having both the damage and stun overall burst to be able to get rid of you. And Roadhog was a bit of a fair matchup where the Reaper should be advantaged against Hog, but he also does have the stun and damage to beat you, whereas All the rest of the tanks that are left don't have that. So tanks cannot just simply beat you. I mean, Ryan can pin you, I guess, or D.Va can self-destruct you if you mess up your Wraith form that badly, but there aren't really tanks in the game, unless you let Zarya get to 100 charge, I guess, that punish you really well. And in the backline, Lucio and Ana can win the duel with Reaper, or Moira can run away, but I think the advantage goes in his favor. Keep in mind too, D.Va's got the 4-second of thrusters, a little bit weaker, so I think there's going to be a ton of duels Reaper can easily go out and take, and not a whole lot left that is very good to stop him other than McCree, who is the top counter pick. I don't put McCree in tier 1 as most reliable in this format because I think the other DPS options are just easier to play and less punishable, or can run wild a little bit easier than McCree can. Tracer and Soldier are back in the tier 1 most reliable slot again this week, and the interesting phenomenon, as I've sort of said already from last week, is that high-level players were playing Orisa Sigma, but I don't think that duo felt very good at lower tiers. Soldier up against double barrier is kind of meh. Any poke characters that has to poke shields when the enemy tanks shields really well and manage their shields really well kind of silences Soldier out. So you're not going to want to pick him if the enemy does successfully run an Orisa Reinhardt double shield combo that's 2000 HP of shields for you to chew through. It's not going to be worth shooting barriers the whole time, but assuming they don't have that pick, Hog and Sigma, who are also pretty strong against Soldier, are out a little bit more so on Sigma's barrier in double shield comps, but the biggest Soldier counter in my eyes is Doomfist. He's gone, and Brig armor was pretty good at making Soldier's consistent damage a little less impactful, whereas with Brig gone, sure, there's more healing left in the game than there was last week, but Soldier's got that 6-second helix and just a ton of firepower to dish out without a ton of aim being required, to be honest. If he outpositions Reaper or McCree as better poke than them, and really he's just the best poke character in the game right now, in my opinion. Next to Reaper is Tracer, who plays just like him, just requiring more skill. Both see benefits when there's no stun or Brig. Both will need the enemy supports or DPS to go McCree to counter, and Tracer's speed and ranged poke is still good enough to outmatch Sombra a bit in ranked, at least. Sombra buffs definitely helped, but Tracer plays solo much better than Sombra does and requires less effective teamwork to get things done. Also in tier 1, I am putting Torb, which might seem surprising due to Rally not being in the pool with Brigitte being out and me suggesting Bunker's not very good, but the truth is Torb's no longer a Bunker hero in my opinion. I think he's just a straight up robust, consistent DPS pick. Listen, he can still get countered by the range DPS Soldier McCree, Widow Hanzo, but I've been growing higher and higher on this guy as the weeks have gone on. I think he is the best easy mode spam character in the game, and you should prefer him on defense ahead of Reaper. His playstyle just asks far less of you and gives far more value for the effort put in. He's especially good on defense when the enemy wants to dive. I think he just shuts that down pretty easily now, but he's not too bad in Brawl Mirrors either, honestly, because oddly enough, the Torb turret struggles a bit more up against tanks that have range damage, because oftentimes they're the only ones that can get an angle on it to destroy it. Ryan, Winston, D.Va, they're all short range tanks, so no matter where you put it, they need somebody else to shoot it for them, and as long as you put it in a good spot, it really can be a big pain for the enemy DPS or supports to get an angle on it. Orisa was actually kind of the best tank to pick up against Torb because you need to be able to outpoke it and kill the turret before you go in. I could be wrong, but I don't think you're going to find a lot of Orisa picks, and if you don't, I think Torb's an incredibly safe option. Molten Core can be used as a damage follow-up ult when you're playing Brawl, slamming down with Earthshatter or Grav, but also can be used as a defensive ult up against dives like Genji Blade, Winston Primal, that kind of thing to protect you. So I like him. I think he's a very flexible character right now. Otherwise, in the counter pick slot with 4 stuns gone, maybe Genji's kind of okay, maybe sorta. Ana's back in the pool. You can get Nano Blades to work. I don't think Bunker counters it. So if you're good enough at Genji, go for it. This is probably one of the best pools for him left. There is no Doomfist selectable, so he's not getting power crept by him anymore. So on vertical maps like Gibraltar, there might be no other better option than Genji, except for maybe Sombra, who I think is just easier and more straightforward to play. Yes, I always talk about Sombra being hard to combo with, but I'm growing a little bit more fond of her due to the straight stats buffs she received, and I think she also benefits from stuns being gone, making it easier to EMP freely. There's still McCree flashbanging, honestly, but far less things for you to dodge, as well as no Brig to armor your spread damage. Key matchups to look out for when picking Sombra as a counter pick is going up against Diva or Wrecking Ball, who both can mechanically outplay you, but because you can go invisible, you should be able to get the drop on them, and hacking them will make them very easy focus fire targets for any of the tier 1 damage that you hopefully have on your team to follow up on. But make sure that you have a heavy damage dealer as your other DPS when picking Sombra, or a big ultimate to combo with or something. Otherwise, you are going to lack mid-fight damage even after the Sombra buffs. Last in the sub tier 1 counter pick category are the snipers and Mei. These are quite map specific and counter pick matchup dependent. Recon might scout Sombra. Hanzo arrows can get pickoffs on bigger slow moving targets like McCree, Soldier, and Reaper, but probably takes more skill than required. Widow similar. Both of them can pretty easily beat out Torb, but I'd say in this week's rotation, Dive or Rush likely plays faster than them, making them kind of iffy. You got small windows to pop off for them to get value, I think. The game's going to play a lot faster when there isn't all manner of stuns to stop you from running in. And oddly enough, I'm putting Mei quite low in my experience anyway. After the Mei nerfs, I've noticed that higher tier players are still able to get some value out of Mei, but again, it's similar to the bunker problem. Now that it's quite inefficient to play her with how long the wall cooldown is, you really got to set up a clean engagement right away. Otherwise, I think most other picks look better than you. If the enemy runs Wrecking Ball and Diva, you can easily freeze both of them, but I now think Mei is sort of in the spot Sombra used to be, where she takes more effort to synergize around than it's worth a lot of times. If you're insane at Mei and just have perfect walls every time, you can do great things, but the enemy can't pick, for example, Roadhog, which Mei was great at countering. You can synergize with a Rhine rushdown comp for sure, but now that tanks can escape through one pillar of them, both your play has less impact and it's less efficient. So I think she's a bit more on the gimmicky tier, but is strong enough to counter some things. At the bottom of the DPS category, where I'm putting as skill and matchup or combo dependent, are slower range spam heroes. Oddly enough, a lot of these are really good up against Brig, who's not going to get played anyway, and I don't think they're as strong up against the team comps that are remaining in the pool. As with any DPS, hit shots, kill things, sure, you can get these to work, but I think the three of them benefit from Bunker being better, either playing in it or against it in a very slow play style, where this week I think either Brawl or Dive just outpaces them. Down here at the bottom of the avoid list is Symmetra. Symmetra in theory shouldn't work, but might anyway if the enemy lacks coordination. Both Dive and Brawl can get in on her at close range and kill her before she can work up to tier 1 charge, but if the enemy lacks coordination, Sim can be a fine builder. I just think Torb has a more direct route to value and a better ultimate now, oddly enough. Sim's wall used to be great, but it lasts only a few seconds now, and I think that's far less impact than the control Torb brings to the table. With better turrets, a better ult, and an escape button, Sim can work, there's just better options. Well guys, that's everything for this week's hero tier list. If you did enjoy it, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content, and if you haven't already, hit the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news updates and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.